Okay, so this short, or at least not so long video will show you how to create a second database to use in phase 2 of this course, ITSE-2409. I am in the eCampus section of ITSE-2409, and I have already gone inside the phase 2 folder. I can go back and just simply start off with lessons and assignments. Phase 2 is at the top. If you click on that, you'll see a list of assignments starting with 2.0. There's no 1.0 because this is basically a previous class, and 1.0 has already been completed in phase 1 of this course. If you are working on phase 1 and want to stay there, maybe you don't want to mess around with phase 2. But it's going to be your choice. Hopefully you will attend class at some point. Then you will get a better explanation and you'll be able to make a more informed decision. I will click on 2.0 and see the directions for the first assignment. 1.0, as I stated earlier, was basically a copy of the install, download, and install My Sql Workbench, which I will open now. Since my eCampus is open, I'll click on the Windows menu and I'll call My Sql Workbench. We have one connection, one instance. I'll click on that. I'll put in my password and log in. I see the Chinook database. The schema says Chinook. It's the only schema currently available. If I right click on it, it tells me that I can set it as the default schema, and then it would turn bold. I can do that if I were working on assignments that have anything to do with Chinook. If the assignment deals with Chinook, then definitely you want to keep this as the default schema. We want to create a new one though, because phase 2 will depend on a different database. You can keep Chinook and just ignore it, or go back and work on it according to whatever schedule of assignments you're working with. I'll open up eCampus again. There is a sample, or rather simple assignment, by which I mean this one, sample My Sql database. These two text files help you create one new database to use in My Sql Workbench. I will click on create.txt. That will open up a new web page. This is just text. I'll click on it just to make sure that I'm in the active window. And then I'll press Control A to select all. If you're in a Macintosh, you should press Command A. I'll right click and copy. You can also press Control C, Command C on a Mac, and then move on back to MySQL. In MySQL, the workbench shows us that Chinook is still the only schema there. We want to create a new one. We'll consult the icons on top here. One of them, if I hover on top, says that I can create a new schema, and basically a new schema is a new database. I will click on that icon. It gives me some options. I can call it new schema or something else. Make sure that you follow standard naming conventions. I'm going to call this one My_database, since I've already used this name in other videos and in the exercises included in eCampus. You can call it whatever you want as long as it's a system legal name. I'm going to accept the default options and click apply. It will give me again a verification window saying, hey, you want to create schema, call it my database. Basically, this script will be sent to the server. I will click apply. The schema has now been created. I'll click on finish. I can close this tab, and then I now have this query tab that's open. If you don't see a query tab at this point, you can go to File and create a new query tab. It's Control T. I do believe it's Command T on your Macintosh. This one's already open. I copied the text from the file that I clicked on eCampus, so I'll right click, tell it to paste, and here is the script. This is what's going to build the schema for the class, at least for the new database that's called My Database. I'm going to click on My Database just to make sure that I am working with this one. I will right click and ask it to change it to be the default schema. I'll click on that. My database is now bold, telling me this is what you're working with. Tables have been created, views, etc. Well, actually the space for tables, the space for views, etc. has been created. It's not until we actually run this script that was downloaded and pasted that actual tables may be created. I'll click on the lightning bolt and it tells me that in less than a second it created those tables, or at least the schema that we need to use for the assignments. I can either close this or just delete the script, so I'll just close that tab. I'll go back to my eCampus page. I can close this file by just Xing the tab. I will now go on to the second file called populate.txt. Same thing will happen. A new tab will open. I have text in the web page. I'll click somewhere where it's safe. Press Ctrl A to select all, and then I can right click or press Ctrl C. If you did right click, make sure that you copy Command C on your Mac. I will now go back to my SQL database. Make sure that I have an active query tab. I closed the last one, so I'll create a new one. I'll go to File menu and tell it to create a new query tab. Your shortcut here is Ctrl T. So here's my query tab. I'm going to right click and paste. Here is my new, or rather my old query script that will now create the tables and insert all the values into our schema. I will find and run the lightning bolt. I have some results here that is pretty quick. I now have a new working database that has tables, views, etc. I'm not really sure if they have been created, although I trust that they have. I'm going to close that tab. I won't save it. I'm going to close my SQL Workbench. I'll close this tab and I'll back on eCampus in the lesson. I will click on the Windows menu once again and open my SQL Workbench. I will log in to my instance with my password. And now I see that my database is bold and there is a new icon on the left side of tables, this drill. If I click on it, I now have revealed that there's new tables that have been created inside of my database. Customers, order items, orders, etc. I will return to eCampus and scroll down just a little bit in the first lesson, which is about the select statement, the very most basic thing about queries in MySQL. And I'll copy the sample script that asks to select the product name from products. These names have already been defined in the tables for the new database that we created. I will right click and copy. You can also Control C. Then I'll skip back into my SQL Workbench and paste what I just copied. My select product name from products has now been pasted. And if I run it using the lightning bolt, then I see that product name has been selected from products and has been listed accordingly. That tells me that the contents of my database have now been populated with items from the sample database that we will be using in phase 2. If you have any questions about how to install a new database inside of my SQL Workbench to work with phase 2, please contact your instructor. I'll be glad to answer any questions.